Hey there, if you work in data and you've been trying to understand how AI is going to shape the industry and your future career, this is a great video for you. We've got Maven Analytics instructor Chris Bruehl, and he's going to be giving you a great foundational overview of AI, what these tools are doing these days, how he thinks things are going to be changing in the future, and what you should keep an eye on to make sure that you stay relevant. It's a great video. I hope you'll enjoy it. Let us know what you think in the comments.
So we're going to kick this off with some slides before diving into some live demos. But we're going to start with a little bit of motivation for why analysts need to use AI before diving into just a very, very little bit of theory around what these AI tools really are. We'll jump into some prompt engineering tips, and then we'll do our live demos. So let's go ahead and dive in. So why do analysts and really everybody that works any sort of professional job need to use AI? The world is changing. Technology like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and other AI tools allow us to complete tasks that used to take hours in a matter of minutes, and they're total game changers. So this technology really took me by surprise personally. You know, if you're familiar with ChatGPT, the current model is GPT-4, but I taught at a data science bootcamp where some of my students were playing with GPT-2. And the sophistication of that model was not very high. It could, kind of string together sentences and generate words and combinations of words that were somewhat related to, the topic that somebody input. But I was like, that's sort of cute. That's a kind of a fun toy. But then just a few years later, ChatGPT was launched, and it totally blew my mind. And my philosophy on how AI was going to impact our day-to-day work really changed. It was a very dramatic shift in terms of how powerful AI and these types of models had become in just this very short period of time. But some of the reasons why we should learn AI tools include, the biggest one is really just improving your performance and efficiency. A lot of the other things I'll discuss are kind of subcategories of that. But there are simply things that machines are more efficient and going to be quicker at than humans are. A lot of that comes down to automating like routine and low value tasks. One place where we're going to see AI used very frequently is for very low level handling of customer service inquiries, right? So if you're asking on a chat bot, right, like how do I update my account? There's no reason to have a human do that anymore because an AI tool can easily retrieve that information and answer a very common question. And what that allows individuals and companies to do is spend their time on, higher value activities. So really complex questions from customers or customer complaints that require a human touch, or maybe, digging into information more deeply or following up with other people on the team to make sure it gets resolved. But these very low level or basic questions can be handled by AI, which allows humans to tackle these more complex or more sensitive inquiries. Another great place I like to use AI is just using it as a way to check your work. We'll discuss it a little bit more, but two heads are better than one. And if you have a machine brain that can look at a problem and your human brain looks at a problem, you'll often find that you're able to round out any rough edges in your own thinking and also round out any rough edges in what the AI output is as well. It's also an amazing way to retrieve information and learn about new topics. I imagine most of you have used it for this purpose, but I like to describe ChatGPT as a super powered version of Google. So if you remember, I'm dating myself, but when search engines really started to come out and become popular, it used to be that you had to go to a library and look for knowledge in a Dewey Decimal System, find the specific book that you wanted, find the chapter in the book that you wanted, and then flip to that physically and identify that information. But when search engines came out, you could just type into Google, ask a question, and if you were good at asking questions, just like if you're good at prompting AI tools, you could often find the relevant information you needed in a much quicker fashion. And I think that AI tools really bring that knowledge retrieval to the next level and can add amazing context and explanations that even raw source materials can't. So it's a very powerful way to learn and retrieve information. And ultimately, AI is not going away. It's only going to become more embedded in our daily work. If you use any sort of office software at all, you'll notice that AI tools are being embedded very quickly. So having a good grasp on where to leverage these tools, how to leverage them effectively, is going to allow you to stay on the cutting edge and stay competitive in your work. We see autocomplete emails. If you work with Microsoft Office, you're starting to see things like Copilot integrated. And if you're not using those, you're probably going to be falling behind people who are. And at Maven, we don't think that AI is going to replace humans. So one of the big questions we get is that are data analyst jobs at risk? And we think no, at least not in the near future. These tools do get more sophisticated, and sometimes they keep me up at night, and just in terms of how much they've advanced. But we think at least for a decent amount of time, these fears are overblown. And companies will always need human talent and intuition, but the skills required to be an effective analyst will shift substantially. Another plug for another one of our courses is Thinking Like an Analyst. So this is our analytics trifecta from Thinking Like an Analyst. If you haven't taken that course, that's another amazing foundational course. I think it's our most popular course of all time. But this is the set of skills that we think separate a good analyst from a great analyst. And where we think that AI adds the most value is when it comes to technical proficiency. So if you write SQL code, Python code, or work in Excel, right? Being able to use AI effectively makes it much easier to use those tools. You can ask it to write code for you. You can ask it to explain functions and formulas in a very easy manner. And so as these tools get more and more sophisticated, they're going to be able to do a lot more of the technical work or a lot of the heavy lifting in that arena. And so what's really going to become important is to be stronger in the areas of strategic thinking and communication. I would also add that, when it comes to communication, for example, AI can also help you become stronger in communication as well. We'll see some examples of this in a demo, but a lot of the times when I'm writing an email or a LinkedIn post, I ask, ChatGPT to help me make it more concise or critique my writing or just give me feedback in terms of how I can make my communication more effective. It can't really help me with the area of communication that is actually taking the proactive step to reach out to different people that, have different information or different, needs I need to discuss. So communication in that aspect is very important, but it can help sharpen those skills when it comes to writing in particular. But overall, it's going to be really important to be able to leverage these tools for the technical side of things, so you stay efficient and can really rock the strategic thinking and communication portion of that role. And what we really like to say is that if you don't use AI, somebody else will. So if you're not using the most cutting edge tools that make you the most efficient, somebody else in your field is going to, and they're going to outperform you from an efficiency and quality of work perspective eventually. Imagine being a data analyst without using spreadsheets or using the internet. We're going to be saying the same thing about ChatGPT and other AI tools in the near future as well. And to the same extent, like imagine learning Excel in 1990, but then never learning a single new function or formula after that point. So, right, there's been a lot of developments in Excel in the 30 plus years of its existence. And if you stayed with your knowledge of Excel in 1990, the people who had taken time to learn its advanced features and all the new bells and whistles that have come out over the last decades would vastly outperform you. And so just like any other tool, making sure that you're staying up to date on your skills and tools as they evolve is going to be very important. So make sure you're embracing and adapting to that technology. And then just a really quick overview of analytics use cases that we think are very strong for AI. Generating code or formulas. So if you haven't done this yet, we'll see examples of this, but the first time that you do this, it's pretty mind-blowing. You can just go to ChatGPT, ask it to write you lines of Python code that do X or Y. And oftentimes it's very good. We still think it's best when you have a strong foundation in the tool that you're working with. These tools aren't perfect. But if you have a strong foundation in SQL and you're asking it to help you write SQL code, it will often do very well. And then sometimes you just need to make small tweaks to that code to get exactly what you want. It's also very good at explaining technical concepts. We'll see an example of that. But if you want to learn about linear regression and you want a high-level overview, it's often a very good place to start. Again, it's sort of like that super-powered version of Google. It combines a lot of the knowledge that might be in disparate articles throughout the internet into a very succinct, nice output, and you can converse with it in a way that allows you to ask the questions and fill in the gaps that you need. Another favorite use case of mine is troubleshooting or debugging code. So if you've ever been, late at night or maybe the end of your day, and you're trying to run Python or SQL code, and you keep getting an error, and your eyes are tired, and you're trying to find out why your code isn't running. It used to be a big chore, but now you can just take your code, paste it into ChatGPT, paste the error message, and say, "Hey, do you know why I'm getting this error?" And of course, it's going to be the comma that you were missing on line 30. So it'll ChatGPT doesn't get tired, so it'll spot a missing comma very easily, and that's a really nice use case there. It can comment code, it can optimize queries or formulas. So if you have a very complex piece of code or formula, you can say, "Hey, is this the best way to do this?" And it might provide alternative suggestions to make it run a little bit more smoothly and efficiently. And give you step-by-step tutorials to tackle different tasks, provide you tips on data visualization, automate manual tasks, again, help you research technical topics. And finally, and this is really fun as an instructor in particular, but it can generate data samples, which can be nice. It can also often scrape things like Wikipedia data. So if you wanted, the GDP of different countries worldwide, it can often pull that information from the web if you did need to use that for an analysis or join that to some other data that you're working with. And just a very high-level overview of the AI landscape. So AI is a very big bucket. AI can mean anything from, automating power systems at power plants to self-driving cars to things like ChatGPT. And so we define this as just being machines and computer systems that mimic functions associated with human intelligence, like decision-making, image recognition, et cetera. Within that, we have the field of machine learning. These are statistical models that help computers learn with minimal human interaction and get more accurate when exposed to more data. So this could be anything like, if you've taken our data science path, this could be decision trees, linear regression, gradient boosting, random forest, et cetera. But the most sophisticated family of models are deep learning models, also known as neural networks. And these are very, very complex algorithms that are designed to mimic the human brain. And they learn almost exclusively without human interaction. So LLMs, which is the technology and the type of model behind ChatGPT, are in this category of deep learning. And this is maybe a little bit big brain, but when it comes to AI, we put AI into two buckets: weak versus strong AI. So weak AI is AI that can only perform specialized tasks. So for example, ChatGPT could tell you how to drive a car, but it couldn't use that knowledge to drive a car itself. And so, what most science fiction thinks of as AI would be strong AI, which can learn and perform any task that a human can do. And maybe, in the near future, right, an AI system, if you asked, right, could tap into a self-driving car and drive that and perform those tasks. But as of now, right, all of these models, whether it's GPT-4, it's not a model that extends then to self-driving cars. That's a separate model and an algorithm that lives in a different system. But at some point, a strong AI system would be able to blend across these various tasks like a human could. And that's still on the horizon as of now. And so a little bit of an aside, deep learning has its foundation in statistics. So the underlying models are like very, very there's basically billions of small linear models in this type of LLM. They're very complex and are often known as black boxes because it's very difficult to understand the relationships in these models. It's very hard to understand why LLMs produce the specific outputs that they do. We understand this at a high level conceptually, but there's trillions of parameters in a production LLM like GPT-4. Let's see. And so really quickly, just how do LLMs work? A very simple language model, right, might be able to fill in this blank. The capital of France is, and the ideal answer would be the capital of France is Paris. But how does the model fill in the blank? The model doesn't know that Paris is the correct response, but instead suggests the answer that it thinks is most probable in the given context. So at their core, these models work by predicting the next most likely word. So there's uncertainty in all of these things, but it associates Paris with thousands of words in its knowledge base, and it determined that that had the strongest relationship with words like capital in France. And even this simple model might seem easy conceptually, but remember that the word capital has multiple meanings. It has a financial meaning. It has this political meaning. And France has also had other capitals in its history. And the blank could also be something like beautiful or a popular tourist destination. So there's always going to be uncertainty in the output of LLMs, which is one of the risks of using them, because again, they're just trying to suggest the most probable thing based on what it's learned from the corpus of text. But they're never going to be perfect, just like we aren't going to be perfect at guessing the next word. But an even more complex prompt, like an LLM, if we ask when did Paris become the capital of France, the ideal response would be Paris became the capital of France in the 6th century. And so, how do these models work? They look at they basically analyze millions of documents on the internet and related statements like in 508 AD, Paris became the capital of France. And so it identified that it's somewhere in its knowledge base in a document that it's seen before. This is the information that most closely relates to the prompt that I've submitted. And then it associates the prompt with those documents and tries to mimic the language from the responses. And so, one thing that you'll notice, right, when you work with LLMs and AI tools is that every time you submit a prompt, even if you submit the same prompt, the response will be a little bit different each time. And there's an element of randomness to account for its uncertainty. So it's by design. If you ask again, it's going to give you a slightly different response because it knows that there are multiple answers to these problems. So these outputs will, be slightly different every time you submit the same prompt. And so it's very important to keep in mind that these models are just trying to guess the most likely answer, but they're not going to be perfect. And it's because of the probabilistic nature of how they operate. But overall, these are insanely colossal achievements in machine learning that model the shape of language. So ChatGPT-4 costs like $110 million to train and took 11 months using some of the most advanced computing resources in the world. So not something that most of us could train at home, but absolutely impressive from a technological perspective. And so there are a few different AI tools. This slide says ChatGPT and Gemini. Gemini is Google's version, but there's also a very interesting third competitor known as Claude by Anthropic. And I think one of the important things to stress here is that we don't know what the most popular AI tool is going to be in 10 years, right? Or even 5 years. This is a very new space. It's very, very hot from an investment perspective. So, personally, I'm not trying to fix my, bets on any specific tool. It's very important to kind of keep your eye out on this space and make sure that you have a good read on all the various tools out there. But these tools each have, if you look at benchmark performances, they might perform better in specific areas. So, Gemini is quite good with Python code. Claude is often highly regarded for its ability to perform research, but all of them are very similar when we discuss common pitfalls when it comes to AI. And speaking of, one of the most important things to remember is just like humans, right? LLMs are not perfect. They're known to hallucinate facts with total confidence. So because of the way they work, they might associate words that aren't actually true or in their answer. So especially early on when these tools were released, and people would ask them for medical advice and they would cite papers that didn't exist. And they certainly put a lot of work into making sure that these models are getting more accurate, and they have. But remember that you're the one that's ultimately responsible for verifying the accuracy of model outputs. And when it comes to very sensitive use cases, one of the things that I find is very helpful is ask for source material. So if you're asking, for medical advice, ask for the article that it got the information from. Don't just take its output. And if you can't find that article, or that article doesn't seem to agree, that's a good sign that it might have hallucinated a fact. But it's very easy to be kind of blown away by the output of these tools, but it's very important to remember that they're not perfect, and we can't take for granted that fact, because if we do, there could be costly mistakes associated with them. Additionally, solutions might be suboptimal or entirely incorrect. Again, it's very related to the prior point, but even if they're not like making stuff up, they could lead you in the wrong direction. And this is particularly true when it comes to data analytics. So if we'll see an example of an AI analysis feature of ChatGPT. And Chris Dutton and Alice Zhao did a very good YouTube video that I'll try to find and paste in the comments. But if you, there are some areas where its critical thinking might fail. And if you, again, just try to use AI completely without using your own critical thinking, you could really end up not impressing people very much. In other cases, they lack specific domain knowledge. So a lot of the times they're not going to understand the context of your specific business, the people involved, or understand, the why behind the responses they produce. And finally, again, sometimes their outputs might fool you into thinking this. They're not capable of common sense or human judgment in the same way that we are. And the more specific you can be, the more objective inputs you can give them, the better, but they might miss critical context that might seem obvious. So again, just make sure that you're very, very careful in terms of assessing the outputs of these tools. Very quickly, if you want to jump on ChatGPT and start playing with it, just go to chat.openai.com. There's also a nice FAQ page. I have the premium version of ChatGPT. I find that it's definitely a higher performance model, but most of these tools will have a free version that have some limitations, and then a premium version. And I find that the premium versions are pretty nice if you can spend up. Gemini similar, gemini.google.com. And then finally, Anthropic is at just claude.ai. But all of these tools are worth playing with and evaluating on your own. In terms of prompt engineering, just a few tips before we dive into the demos. At a high level, prompts are the questions or instructions that serve as inputs into the models like ChatGPT. And prompt engineering, it's really just, in common words, it's asking questions good, or being good at asking for what you want. But formally, it's the practice of constructing prompts to generate effective and accurate responses. And so this is the prompt. We have Chris Dutton asking, can you please explain how the offset function works in Excel? And the response comes out and it says, certainly the offset function is a powerful tool that allows you to reference a range of cells, blah, blah, blah. And in general, it's very important to be clear and specific, provide context and examples. It can be helpful to establish roles, especially when it comes to copywriting or argumentation. It's also very important to set the tone or level of complexity in similar scenarios. And of course, you want to understand the limitations of these models, as we've discussed. And one thing that I found is this is definitely a skill that you get better at. So, I think when these tools first came out, there was a lot of talk about, prompt engineering as a role. And I think there is a space for that. But overall, I think back to when I learned, like when I first started really using Google heavily, over time, you just naturally get better at asking, generating search queries, and the same is true for prompting. So the more practice you get with these tools, the better you get with prompting. And my other advice is just be creative. And again, generally speaking, it doesn't cost too much to try different queries or different prompts. So go nuts and just experiment with the types of outputs you get by after we go through this lesson. A few of the tips that we incorporate, because it's pretty fun and interesting. It'll also help you refine your own skills. But in general, you often won't nail your prompt right away. So make sure to refine that. And of course, you can also iterate or converse with these tools to give it more context as you go along. And we'll see examples of that. But one of the most important things is just being clear and specific. Again, these tools don't have the context that you have in your brain unless you give it to them. So here, Chris is asking, how do you calculate year-over-year growth? And it's just giving a very general formula for year-over-year growth. But what Chris really wanted was how to do this in Excel, and he already has 2 columns of data. So if you provide these cells or things like column names in SQL or Python, you're going to end up with a much better response to the question you actually wanted. So make sure you list things like your tool, any sort of column or data input names, etc., and you'll get much better responses. Again, what are common, we're providing context, but here's common supply chain KPIs. And it's just, again, very high level, but then Chris refines this prompt and says, I'm a data analyst working in supply chain analytics for a multinational company. What KPI should I be analyzing? And then for each metric, include a formula. And so again, if you ask for what you actually want, you'll get what you actually want. But if you just ask these very high level open-ended questions, you'll get very high level, less detailed responses. And so in this refined response, we get these very nice formulas that help Chris calculate the formulas he actually needs. Establish roles. So again, here's Chris asking what's the best way to clean data versus I'm a data analyst for a retail business and I've been tasked with cleaning and preparing a raw data set. Please play the role of a data QA engineer and provide a step-by-step plan. And so again, I'll let you review these later, but the most important thing is really just saying exactly what you want, the level of complexity you want, and mentioning specifics. Here's Chris asking, explain regression analysis. And then here's him saying, just explain it in 2 sentences to a C-level executive at a marketing agency. And so again, if you want a concise response, make sure to ask it to be concise. If you want a very detailed response, we can get those as well. But it's very important to just ask for what you want. And so let's go ahead and jump into some demos.
Hey there, hope you're enjoying the video. Sorry to interrupt, we'll get you right back to it. Right now, Maven Analytics is offering a deal that was just too big not to share it with you. We've got an early Black Friday sale, and you can save up to 50% off of Maven Analytics paid plans. So if you've been considering learning Excel, SQL, Power BI, Python, Tableau, and everything else that you need to become a data analyst or accelerate your career, now is the perfect time. Check it out at mavenanalytics.io. You can see the Black Friday offer in the banner at the top of the screen. You can't miss it. Again, if you're on the fence, there's never been a better time. We don't do a lot of these sales, so I hope that some people will take advantage. Now, enjoy the video. I'll let you get back to it. Thanks.
I use ChatGPT all the time. As an instructor, when I'm brainstorming a new course, one of the things that I love using ChatGPT for is just thinking through, important concepts related to the topic at hand. Like I find that if I'm brainstorming and I think about 10 ideas, and then I say, hey, ChatGPT, give me 10 concepts related to this subject, I'll find that generally speaking, 8 of our answers will overlap. One of ChatGPT's answers that I didn't think of is really good, and I wish I had thought of it, and I probably would have thought of it later when I was already midway through the course, and then it'll be a pain to get where I need it to. And then one will be irrelevant, redundant, or I'll just throw that away. But I find that brainstorming activity is very powerful with ChatGPT. And we can think about just general communication use cases, like, can you help me come up with a LinkedIn style post talking about the importance of networking? And I never know what ChatGPT is exactly going to say, so these live demos are always fun. But you'll see that it starts writing a LinkedIn style post. Your networking, your superpower, and career growth. It gives me 4 bullet points about this. And just to kind of illustrate this conversational nature, I can say, can you limit this to the top 3 reasons? And then it'll shorten that. And then I can say, can you make it even more concise? And then it'll make it more concise, right? So there's this ability to iterate. You don't necessarily need to nail the prompt the first time, but we can always just ask follow-up questions every time. Or we can ask something like this, which is, you are an expert recruiter and LinkedIn influencer that gives advice on finding jobs in data analytics. Can you write a post about how to maximize one's profile visibility and effectiveness on LinkedIn? And it will, again, generate a different style post with a slightly different tone here. And so just, again, it's very important to add the type of context that you want to get the outputs that you want when you're doing this, whether it's for general communication or brainstorming like this, or whether it's for data analytics. Again, a very nice use case of this is asking it to explain topics. So maybe you want to ask it, can you explain linear classification models in a few sentences? I won't read these responses, but again, it gives me a nice output. Linear classification models are algorithms that categorize data into classes by drawing straight line or hyperplane in higher dimension to separate the classes, right? But if I had just asked, can you explain linear classification models? We would get a much more detailed response, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, and so again, if you just want a high-level summary, make sure to ask. Otherwise, you will get a much longer response. But let's go ahead and jump into some examples of more technical issues. But again, like I love using these tools to freshen up on concepts that I may have learned in college, just get very quick information. I find that these, like, if I'm looking up, I want to remember exactly how a metric was calculated in data science. This is where I tend to come to first now, as opposed to Googling it. Let me go ahead and stop sharing for just a moment. All right, and now for a little bit more of the fun stuff. All right, we'll do a couple of use cases. One of the first things that that happens to many of us on the job is, let's create a new chat here, is we get a new query and we don't really understand it. Oftentimes they're far, far more complex than this. We can just go ahead and ask, can you explain the following SQL query? And I'll paste in an SQL query, ask, and I'll go ahead and do the same thing to our other tools here as well. Gemini and Claude. And I'm going to be spending most of my time in ChatGPT. A lot of the reason why is because I have the premium version there and the free versions elsewhere. But one thing that I do like to do periodically is ask multiple tools the same question, particularly for things like brainstorming. Because like, as I was talking about earlier, when you combine your own critical thinking with the output of an AI tool, you often come to a better conclusion. And sometimes that's also true with AI. If you're not sure if one tool is hallucinating, another way to fact check AI is just run these different models up against each other. And you'll sort of create like an ensemble that will, if you get conflicting outputs from two different AI tools, that's probably a red flag that you want to dig deeper into something as well. But ultimately, all of these return some explanation of these queries. So it says we're selecting this data, we're joining some tables, and we're filtering down to league ID. Claude is I think it's giving me the shortest response because it's giving me concise output because they're at high demand. They're I think the smallest company, so they have to be a little bit more mindful of their expenses. But Gemini and ChatGPT both gave me very detailed responses about what's being selected. And then if I wanted to, another very nice use case of these tools is, can you comment this code? Right. So oftentimes we write our code and then we end up going back to it later on, or maybe when we're asked by a coworker to comment our code for us. So if you want to do this in a hurry, you can, ask ChatGPT to do it for you. And sometimes, it'll be much more than you would comment the code. And so you can always say, this is too many comments, make them more high level. And then it will kind of pare down those use cases there. Yeah, it's a little bit better, but probably still too many comments, etc. But now let's say, we can do things like aggregation as well. So if I wanted to ask, I have an SQL table with soccer games called match. There's an ID column, the season, home team goals, away team goals. Can you write a query to aggregate the total number of home and away goals by season? And we can do that pretty easily here. So it's going to select the season, sum home team goals as home team goals, away team goals as away team goals, from match, group by season, order by season. And that gives us this query here. And if we were to run that, we will end up with an aggregated table. So we start with a base table of Premier League games. And then just by asking it, to aggregate this, it's very good at generating custom SQL queries out of the box. The important thing is that you understand the basic data operations and a little bit about SQL in order to really know how to ask this. Right? If you have no knowledge, you're not going to be nearly as effective at working with these AI tools to get these tasks done as somebody that does. We could, of course, ask to do this in Python. I rambled a little bit too much, so I'll go ahead and skip. Let's go ahead and ask it to visualize this data for us. So let's say the output, let's say I have a, you write Python code to plot a data frame that has season, total home team. So we're just asking this to plot this over time. I think I need to tweak this just a little bit, but let's see. Result. Change this a little bit. I didn't give it enough context here, guys. That's why. Let's see. All right. Oh yeah, I got to change the name of my data frame as well. How do we get now? I'm gonna add a space here. And there we go, right? So generated a line chart of home goals and away goals. Not surprisingly, the home team tends to score more than the away team by a factor of almost 25% season over season. Also see a nice decline in 2013-14 for whatever reason. I'm not a huge football fan, so I couldn't tell you why. But then we can go ahead and follow up. And if you use Python, it used to be that you had to be really, really knowledgeable about data visualization libraries. But now when it comes to formatting, like I still think you need a good foundation in them. But when it comes to formatting them, I almost exclusively use ChatGPT. So here I'm asking, can you set the x-axis to 0? We want a better comparison of our lines. Remove the upper and right spines, make the home goal line dark blue and away team red. So I'll go ahead and just grab this formatting code down below. And if I go ahead and update my code here with the block of code that formatted it, we should get a better version of this chart. Let's see. Oh, I meant to set the y-axis, so I gave it the wrong context here again. I'll just go ahead and change this to y-axis. And there we go. So I had a typo in my prompt, but yeah, it removed the spines. It did not change the, oh yeah, it did. I just need to add this little piece in here. So that's my bad as well. Let's go ahead and add the color, back in, etc. And then we get the color. Oh, I didn't paste that in actually. Okay, red. Great. There we go. Okay. Let's see. We have time for a little bit more. Let's go ahead and do one tedious mapping task. So one area where I think ChatGPT is very, very helpful is for tedious tasks. So we have a country name, right? But a lot of times we want this to be 3-digit country codes. Anytime you have like you're working with geographic regions, whether that's US state, country, or subdivisions within other countries, like Chinese province, for example. A lot of these have special abbreviations, or perhaps for data visualization, you need the abbreviations to make things look good. This type of tedious task is amazing. So I have a pandas data frame. It just looks like this. We have an ID and a name of a country, with country name stored in a column called name. Can you write me code to map these to the ISO3 country code? That's a 3-digit code. And they actually, when I was developing this demo, I learned about a new library called PyCountry. So it has all of the countries and their associated 3-digit codes. So if I go ahead and paste in this code now, I can create a new column. So it wrote me this function to get the ISO3 country code. I just need to change my data set name here. Again, that could have been some context I gave it. And let's take a look at the head of our data frame now. And there's a fun little wrinkle here. So it did successfully map Belgium to BEL, France to FRA, Germany to DEU. Let's go ahead and look at the top 10 rows. But we'll notice that Scotland and England do not have a 3-digit code. That's because these are countries in the sense of soccer, but they're not countries in the sense of, they're all part of the Great Britain or the United Kingdom. And so I can ask, can you help me fix the issue with England, Scotland, and other UK subdivisions? And I'll say, oh, sure. So it'll add me an extra line of code for England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and give me a dictionary to map those to Great Britain as well. And you can do this with case statements and SQL. It's very helpful. But if we go ahead and update our code here, Oh, I got to actually change the name of this here. Oh, I gotta put countries, not UK mapping. Yep. And then run this. Yes. Okay. And so now we successfully mapped England to Great Britain. So this type of task used to be very manual, right? We'd have to write out dictionaries for every country that exists, map them. But if you work with AI, you can also do this with things like SQL case statements or Excel logic as well. But anytime we have a ton of lines of code to write and you find yourself wanting to map, I need to map states in the US to geographic regions like Northeast, South, et cetera. That's another task that AI can help you with very easily. And one final feature of ChatGPT I want to call out, and this will kind of cap our presentation here, is just its advanced analytics capabilities, which are kind of interesting. I think these are going to evolve. My computer just froze. There we go.
Yeah, screen's still moving, Chris. We're on the,
Slide.
Back on the PowerPoint.
All right. Yeah, my computer's got really slow.
And yeah, Chris, we've got about 5 minutes left. So this demo's been so good, so I didn't want to cut it and do QA. I think I'll probably just give you the questions afterwards. And then if you feel like making posts about them down the road, folks, follow Chris on LinkedIn. You might get your questions answered there.
I'm having some technical difficulty, so it might be best to switch to questions. Like, okay. I have to figure this out, but I don't think I'll be able to get there in the 5 minutes. But long story short, if you look at this paperclip button now, you can attach a data set like a Excel or CSV file to this, and it will, analyze the column names, produce visualizations, And it's pretty nice for exploring a data set. It still doesn't do the in-depth data analytics and real critical thinking. I mentioned earlier, Chris Dutton has a video on this, but it is a really nice way to explore a data set quickly. And especially if you're not technical or, in a data adjacent role, it could be a really nice way to dive into data easily. But I'd love to answer any questions we have here.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we can tackle a couple. Let me just get them sorted by the upvotes real quick. I think, you covered a few of these things, like what are the limitations of AI and data? I think you covered those pretty well early. How about this one from Maha? What can you do if your organization has a policy against using AI tools? Any workarounds for that?
I don't want to advocate that anybody goes against their organization's policies. I would say the best way to, I think the only thing you can do is really advocate for them. You might want to use cases of AI that aren't related to your company, but just show them how powerful or effective they can be. So, send them amazing YouTube videos or work up a demo of a data set that isn't your company's data and show them how basically try to sell them on the idea that AI adds value. But I can't tell you to use AI on the job if you would get fired for doing that or anything like that.
Yep. No, that's good. I think that's a perfect answer. Definitely. I would just don't get yourself in trouble. These are useful tools, but they're not useful enough to get fired over. So
yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I feel like you've covered a bunch of these pretty well. How about this one? This one's from Mohammed. How can you identify the most suitable AI tools for specific business needs? Like, are there certain tools that you think are better for certain things than others?
That's a broad question.
Yeah.
I think, again, generally speaking, there's no harm in asking multiple tools. Like, I don't have a good answer that if you're working on strategy, you should use Google Gemini, or if you're working on coding, you should work with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is my go-to because I have the premium version. So that model is incredible. Whereas the other ones are free. But yeah, I do think that there is no harm in, leveraging a few tools and seeing if you get better answers from one or the other. I think that's a good practice to periodically check in on as well, because all of these tools are moving very quickly. I know Google is desperate to catch up to ChatGPT in terms of model effectiveness and market share. And there's other competitors out there as well. So I would keep a pulse on all of them, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I typically go to ChatGPT, same thing. Work pays for the premium for me. So I just use it. But I think when I was sort of shopping around, which is now a while, so my shopping around is outdated, I was finding they were fairly comparable for the things that I was trying to do with it, right? Like troubleshoot SQL errors or get an Excel formula, kind of the things I was doing. Everything seemed fairly comparable. So yeah, kind of same page with Chris.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed this video. This was part of our open campus event where we ran 24 sessions in front of a live audience over the course of 2 weeks. It was a ton of fun. We did all these live sessions and we opened up our entire learning platform for free. You did not need a paid account to take advantage of all the courses. So folks could learn Excel, SQL, Power BI, Tableau, Python, etc. All the stuff that you need to learn data analysis skills and take your career to the next level. If you missed it this year, keep an eye out. We'll definitely be doing this again next year, probably again in October. We would love to see you there. And the last thing that I'll leave you with, if you're looking to take your skills to the next level right now and you've been on the fence about a Maven Analytics paid plan, we are currently running our early Black Friday sale. This is the absolute best time to pay for Maven Analytics if you want to, so don't miss out. You'll have the opportunity to save up to 50% on paid plans, which is a pretty great opportunity. You can check out all the details at mavenanalytics.io. Just look for the early Black Friday banner at the top of the site. You can't miss it. Hope that we'll see some of you there as well. Thanks for watching.